Good afternoon and welcome to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette, coming to you live via SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. I hope everyone's having a fantastic afternoon. Hello, Sam and Sylvia. All of you in the Facebook chat. I'm just saying hello. My guest is on the line. I'm just saying hello to everyone in the Facebook chat. I want to say hi to Sarah and Cynthia and Sam. Hi. My guest today is author Andrew Shatkin, who we're going to discuss a number of financial topics. He's an author who's written a number of essays with a Christian worldview, and I just kind of picked one or two. Levon, hello. Dwight, Kim, Sarah, how are you? Thank you, Sarah. You're such a sweetheart. Thank you. And welcome. I'm so happy you guys are in the Facebook chat. I appreciate you being here. As you guys know, I love having Christian-based authors, and so talk about financial topics. Hey, and my Facebook page is kind of lit up today with some other topics, right? Which I will probably talk about in a Facebook Live later. But pardon me, my guest today is like I said, author Andrew Shatkin. So I'm excited to have him on today, and we're going to chat with him a bit about poverty. He's written about the unions and why we need unions. I'm excited to talk to him about that. As you guys know, I'm not a fan. And there's a Supreme Court case coming up about unions. Hi, John Gibson. Hi, David and Russ and Lynn. Hi. So I'm excited to talk to. One of the things that hi, Francis Jones. One of the things that I find very frustrating about social media, I've like nearly 5,000 friends. I think I have 4 spots left. And many of them are Christians, but you have this thing where Christians will basically, just decide you're going to hell because you don't agree on some nuance of the scriptures. And I don't quite get that. I don't quite understand that. That's just not how my personal walk works. To me, I just say, I disagree. And then I keep it moving, knowing that my understanding about the way Christianity works is that God is working with each of us individually. There are some things obviously that are no-brainers, right? But there are other things in which they are nuances of the scriptures, and people will certainly say you're not saved, you're going to hell. Somebody told me that the other day because of some I was explaining. I wasn't condoning, but I was explaining why more women file for divorce than men do from a woman's perspective. And yes, when it's also a Christian. And I said something, I was being flippant. I said, I think what women's idea is, a lot of times, even if they're Christians, is I'll take my chances with a perfect God than an imperfect, unrepentant husband. And he was like, you were never saved if you think you're taking your chances. And I'm like, okay. This is not a theological thesis. I was just being kind of tongue-in-cheek. But these are kind of things that happen. And I don't, and the reason why I'm kind of talking about it is because I don't like it. I just think that one of the things that people who profess Christianity should be able to do is have civil conversations without, damning them to eternal, hell. I just don't think it's healthy, and to be frank, I don't think it speaks well of Christianity when people who are not Christians see us treating each other that way. And as I say all the time, just the personal opinion of one woman. That's all, just one girl's opinion. I'm just saying, I don't think it's cool. I want to say hi to some additional people in the chat, and forgive me if I miss you. Hi, Robert, Gus, Donna McCleary, hello, Charles, Doug, Silvio, Marcy, hi. Thank you so much for being here. Let's talk a little bit about the news before we go to our first little break. Spotify, if you guys are familiar with Spotify, it's one of the many music streaming services that are out there today, and they are about to hit the New York Stock Exchange. That IPO is opening at between $150 and $160 a share. Like, wow. Now, my only thing that they have 71 million paid subscribers. I had no idea. That's twice as many as Apple Music has. That's crazy. I had no idea that they were quite that popular, but apparently they are. So if you can afford to grab yourself some some Spotify stock, it'll be open. It'll be open Tuesday. Actually, that's today. It must open today. Okay. Let's see what else is going on. Panera Bread may have been leaking their customer data. Well, this is not a good thing. That's a very bad thing. Names, home addresses, and more for the past 8 months. This is according to some cybersecurity experts that they've been doing this. That's not, and it says potentially millions of customers who ordered online were vulnerable to identity theft. Terrible. This affects, and the article that I'm reading from LinkedIn is pointing out that it comes on the heels of MyFitnessPal getting hacked to 150 million, to the tune of 150 million customers. And, you know, I'm going to be frank. Josh is here. Hello, Josh. And Faustino and Alistair and Daniel. Hello. I'm not, listen, if you want to hack into my MyFitnessPal account and find out that I haven't weighed myself in 3 months and I haven't run in 5 months, enjoy yourself. But I mean, it's never a good thing when your personal information is leaked. And speaking of which, cybersecurity expert Mike Fitzpatrick is going to be back with us tomorrow, and I'm sure that we are going to talk extensively about that, about Facebook. I'm a little annoyed with Facebook because, you know, if you're going to be labeling and categorizing me, I'd appreciate being categorized as very conservative rather than just conservative. I mean, like, what did I do wrong? So I feel like I should be very conservative and not conservative. I'm not sure what I did to only earn a conservative label from Facebook's algorithms. Of course, I'm kidding, but I looked it up today and I was like, wow, just conservative? But I will tell you, it's a little disconcerting how much information they have about you. Like, they literally have, and this is just Facebook, how many, all the different devices that I access Facebook from, which is way too many. And Philip Turner is here, welcome. What the content that you're more likely to engage with. They were all wrong about the subjects that I'm interested in, though. I think, like, it was like fashion and makeup, like I am, but I don't really, yeah, I don't know. I found that to be, you know, I'm not really that girl, but whatevs. All right, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
When it comes to national security, some people don't know got that mixed up. Hell, I'm on it, which on this page from the Irish Notebook. For decades, millions of illegal border crossers have been pouring into the republic with ease. As a result, America has approximately 33 million illegal border crossers. Many receive better health care than millions of sovereign Americans. It is also estimated that 1 million foreign terrorists and or gang members are seeking who to kill, steal from, rape, sell drugs to, or capture for human trafficking. One of the best ways to protect a nation is to secure the borders with a wall and strict enforcement of keeping illegal border crossers out. Unfortunately, just despite Trump, many in Congress want our borders to remain porous. Economically, it is a $160 billion price tag to us taxpayers. So when retired General Marty Dassey claimed that President Trump's request to divert money from the military budget to pay for the wall would create a I concluded his open borders tendencies has impaired his judgment. When the wall is completed and the borders secured, there will be an immediate $160 billion savings in the cost of dealing with illegal border crossers. No nation can remain strong or even survive if its borders are not secure. Anyone elected to Congress who does not want to secure our borders should be denied their security. I'm Ron Edwards, sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from TaxMama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit TaxMama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. That's TaxMama.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, and my guest today is author Andrew Shatkin. He is the author of many essays from a Christian worldview. And the thing that I liked, what attracted me to him as a guest, is that he talks about many different issues, but many of them political and some of them financial. And so we're going to be talking about a number of topics today. He has a breadth of information, so I'm very excited to have him on the show today. I want to give a shout out to Michael and Bill, who just joined the Facey Chat. And I don't know if I said hi to my boy Doug. Hey, Doug, one of my biggest fans. How are you? Okay, so without further ado, I want to introduce to the audience Andrew Shatkin. How are you?
Melanie, I'm extremely happy to see this opportunity to say a few words about the topic of this book and maybe some other things. I listened to what you said actually previously very carefully, and let me say as much about sending people to eternal death. I would emphasize this as a Christian. First of all, when we reference, my opinion, those statements of Christ about, he does say it, that people will be judged, and accordingly, he says it a number of times. But unfortunately, we apply it to other people, but the possibility is he meant to apply it to himself, ourselves.
Thank you.
That would be the issue.
Like, right?
Not that we send people to hell, but the possibility that we may go there.
Thank you. And I'm gonna tell you, that's how I usually respond to that is that, well, you know what? I'm gonna concern myself with my own salvation. I don't like.
Right. I want to survive.
Exactly. Like
you.
I'm glad that you have time to assess whether or not I'm going to hell. Because you have your act so together that you're totally sure you're not. So I just thank you so much for commenting on that, because it's just really kind of creepy.
I think look, Melanie, you're right. In today's society, and for some time now, Christianity, there's been a tendency to water it down. Then God loves everybody, and everybody's going to make it. But that really isn't the case. It really isn't the true faith, unfortunately.
For sure.
Element in it, and that's it.
But I think what's kind of crazy and creepy is that we will fight with our fellow Christians, and in my opinion, what we're fighting over is our own righteousness. We're trying, instead of trying to save our brother, what we're really doing is trying to prove our own righteousness, and that I have a fundamental issue with.
Right.
You're really not trying to help me; you're trying to prove your own righteous position. Well, we already start. I usually start by asking my guests to tell the audience a little bit about their background, but we jumped right into the meat. But please do tell the audience a bit about your background.
Well, I have a JD degree. I'm not practicing law right now. I'm a business consultant, speaker, writer, and teacher. I also have 2 international law degrees from Holland and 1 from France. And I also, of course, most significant, I have an MDiv degree in theology, biblical languages from Princeton Theological Seminary. And I'm conservative as a Christian. I don't feel I have to hide it. I am fairly traditional, and I hold to the elements, what I think are the basic elements of the Christian faith, as they're stated in the Word of God.
There you go.
That's how I see it.
And why should we hide it? Listen, I'm a public school teacher, and people suggest that I should hide it and say, "Aren't you worried about your job?" And yes, there's something to be said for being discerning and not being an idiot. Okay, that's true. But
right.
when it comes to whether or not you have to take a stand for something in that environment, you have to. And you have to understand that God didn't give me the job.
Take something. particularly young people, I think they really have to be, we have a responsibility as Christian believers to inform the younger generation. That's my opinion. And to not let them accept the secular society as it's been presented to them. You know? I think we have some obligation in that respect.
I agree with you. And, you know, people often say to me, aren't you worried about your job? You know, you speak out about this or that. And I say, well, that assumes that man gave me the job. God is the one who takes care of me. So when you operate from that perspective, then it's very easy to say what needs to be said, period. I mean, to take something, I'm not afraid to say this, Melanie, that I disagree with the Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage. I respect them. They're in that position of authority, and I'm sort of at the ground here, but I just don't agree with it. Exactly. I don't either. And
you know, I mean, and I think the decision was misguided. I mean, because I don't think that is same-sex marriage, although it's here to stay, and I'm going to obey the law in that respect, and I respect the court's decision. The fact of the matter is that I happen to think it's a constitutional right.
Indeed. I don't know if I told you, but you probably gathered from me talking during the open that I also stream the show live on Facebook, and I do have a question from the Facey chat. Philip Turner asks, it's impressive that your background is impressive, and he was wondering what it was like to be a conservative at Princeton, and he said it was tough at Emory. So he said, so what was it like?
Well, I think it's always tough. I think first of all, I think even when the church originally came into the world, into frankly, what was the pagan Greco-Roman world, it was persecuted. I don't think being Christian or being conservative is, at least being Christian, I don't think it's ever been terrible popular stance to take. Really. I mean, certainly not in the full 400 years of the church, and certainly lately it definitely isn't popular. Being conservative, it's always a struggle. It's always a struggle. Right.
No matter, because I feel like you're going against the grain. And the thing that's
going against the grain.
Yeah, and the thing that's insidious about it is. The thing that's insidious about liberalism is, you know, I say this often on social media, that, you know, the way the enemy does things, you know, he hides a lie between two truths to make the lie look like the truth as well. Right? So you know, a lot of times liberalism promotes itself as something that's positive and open and great for everybody, when that really, when you peel back the onion, is not the case. So
that's true. Liberalism is the wrong name. It's not liberal at all.
Exactly. That's so very true. Now, Josh, and his whole comment scrolled up before I could get to it, but Josh in the Facebook chat made a comment about Christianity and wealth, and you know, saying that it was interesting that Christianity has such different views on wealth. I probably didn't capture it totally because it was about 5 minutes ago, and I meant to get to that, but I wondered if you had any comments on Christianity and wealth. I know there are two kind of schools of thought, right? Like Christians should not be wealthy. That's one school.
I don't know about that. Can I make a comment on that?
Absolutely. Well, I was going to say Christians should not be wealthy is one school of thought. And then another school of thought is, well, if God is truly blessing you and you're a Christian, then you should totally be wealthy and like rolling in the dough. So you have these like two very different thoughts within Christianity. And so please do comment on that.
Let me put it this way about the issue of wealth. First of all, Jesus makes a very specific statement about wealth. One of them is, he says the poor are blessed. He says the poor in spirit are blessed. He chose significantly several of his followers, I term his disciples. They were not wealthy people particularly. They were fishermen. They probably were not very, in fact, they were probably poor. He had a following. It was said of him, I don't know if you recall these statements, who was this man that eats with publicans and sinners? He was seen as associating with the underclass. So let me say this about wealth. You know, also, there's the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, where about the rich man not helping the poor man and ending up in hell. And finally, there is the statement, and this is the most difficult one. He tells the rich young man how to be saved. He says, you want to be saved, give all your possessions up. You can't do it. Okay? This is what I say about what I don't think there's anything wrong inherently with earning money or being wealthy as a Christian. I don't think so.
I agree.
But what he does say to us in these statements about poor people, or he's really saying, particularly about the rich young man, he's really saying not that the wealth was bad, but it was the thing it was an impediment for him. So there are all kinds of impediments that we could have that could prevent us from having a relationship with Christ. I mean, we could be proud of being smart. We could be proud of being good looking. All kinds of things that could block us from knowing Christ. Wealth is one of them. It could be, but not necessarily.
I agree.
There's nothing wrong with it.
I agree completely with that. Now, I had another comment in the chat. A longtime friend of mine, Donna McCleary, we share very, very little agreements on political matters, but we are certainly big fans of each other. And she said in the chat that people everybody thinks their religion is the one, and that therefore religion doesn't belong in public school at all. Now, and I said to her, I commented in the Facey chat, I said, I tend to agree, sort of. Meaning, I don't think that teachers should be inflicting their religion on others, but I don't consider Christianity and belief in God religion, and that's why I said that I agree, sort of. There's one thing to say, I'm going to make my students, pray to the east, or whatever it is that Buddhists and Muslims do with the directional praying. And it's another thing to. Yep, I'm sure. And it's another thing to tell students that you believe in God, that you believe in a higher power. Like I don't think it's necessary, because there's religion and then there's a relationship with God, and I think they are two different things. Let me see. Donna also says, because there's a conversation about this going on in the Facebook chat. She's addressing Doug. How you worship is no concern of mine. If you need to pray to your God, that's fine, but don't push that on me. I agree with you, Donna. I agree with you. Totally. And Philip says, wow, Melanie, he is on your street about being good, about being good looking. That is your stumbling block. Be quiet, Philip. Anyway, but no, for me, it's hard for me not to, particularly with issues of character, and issues of right and wrong. It's very difficult for me to not say, you need to be concerned about what your higher power thinks. Like, that's kind of as far as I go in the classroom, because there are people, kids are just people, and I teach high school, that really have no moral compass, and they have to hear it from somewhere. And when it's clear that they have zero moral compass, I think as a Christian, it's incumbent upon me to put them in that direction. Right. I don't know. Now, Josh says teachers should live as Christians, but not try to foist it on the kids. Living examples are a better way to the Lord anyway. Amen, Josh. I agree. How do you feel about that, Andrew?
This is what I feel about that. We live in a diverse society where there are different religions, different kinds of people. Okay, that's fine. That's our civil society. But I draw the line at this point in discussions with people, or if they ask me, I am not about to deny Christ to anybody.
Exactly.
I'm not going to do that. I mean, for me, Christ is the exclusive route to know God and to get to heaven.
Right.
I'm not about to tell a person that that's not what I think. So that's it. If a kid asks me that, I'll tell them. Exactly. And a lot of times kids will ask you, like, why? Like, why do you feel this way about a certain topic? I'm not going to sugarcoat that. And to me, that's not teaching them
you only go a step too far, in my opinion, when you say, and you should too. When you just say, this is what I believe and here's why I believe it, I don't think that is necessarily foisting religion onto kids. You know, I had a 20-minute discussion in my financial literacy class one day about why it was not okay to steal and why it wasn't okay to lie when you're negotiating some type of deal, like if you're selling something or you're trying to, like if you're selling a car or something like that, whether or not you should tell the truth when you're selling the car. And I had a question on the test that said, like, true or false, is it okay to lie when negotiating to sell an item? And it took me 20 minutes to explain why that was not good, because the kids that I was talking to had no moral compass, clearly. So, you know, at that point, I said, well, let me say this. I ended my little diatribe with this. I said, well, allow me to say this. As with this question and as in life, it is always better to tell the truth. I said, that's the way the universe is set up. And that is the way your higher power would have it if you believe in one.
No question.
And that's kind of how I left it in the classroom, but I wasn't going to just let that go. Nobody said anything yet.
Let me say this, Melanie. You said you're a conservative. I am too. I'm an avid supporter of the president.
I would not say I was an avid supporter.
I am a supporter.
I'm a supporter. Josh says nobody better conviction my kids. That sounds inappropriate. No, nothing. They're having a bit of an immature chat. In the chat.
You like that comment? That's okay.
Oh no,
I'm willing to listen to everybody and hear everybody out.
It's totally great. Listen, I want to ask about a chapter that I saw in one of your books. I thought it was just very interesting. It was about poverty. And the title of the chapter is Poverty Bless. And I really wanted to get some insight into what you were thinking and what that chapter was about.
So let me take a look at it a second. I looked at it before I began.
Are you still there? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, there. The phone came off. Yeah. This is the issue I mentioned. There is no question that Jesus talks about and recommends, first of all, his life. He was poor. He apparently didn't have a regular job. Or at one point he worked as a carpenter in his father's shop. He then left that to conduct this 3-year ministry, and it appears that he didn't work. And that seems to be so, isn't it?
Yes, but I don't think that's the case.
Well, you don't think so? Well, I'm just saying that he recommends, he says the poor are blessed. He says the poor in spirit are blessed, and he by poor in spirit, I think he means humble. But the issue is what he means about this issue of wealth. And I think it's what I said, that sometimes when people have wealth, sometimes, not always, I think this is the issue that he raises for us. It brings out a barrier. We begin to think, well, we're completely important. We can do anything. Wealthy people, it can happen. That thinking can come to them. You know, a person who has wealth. I'm great. I'm important. Nothing can dominate. Nothing can topple me. Nothing can get over me. And really, the reality is that it is a sad reality, Melanie. It is a factual reality that we are not exactly autonomous. That we're going to die at any time. That wealth can be taken from us. We can lose it. We can lose our lives. So that's what he means. I think about poverty and talking about it and saying good things about it, because he's saying that wealth can be a barrier if we believe that it shields us as persons, that it makes us, we get fooled by it, I think is what he means. Don't you think?
Yes, I do. And the way Josh put it is, he said, what's Andrew's opinion on the blessings of poverty? And I think you answered that, like that, you know, poverty can be a blessing in that money's not doesn't make you think too much of yourself.
That's right. Actually, another observation. I know, Melanie, I have, in my course of my activities, run into quite a few, people who are not so wealthy. Actually, they tend to be a lot nicer than people who are wealthy.
Yeah. I mean, Donna and I worked at a very swanky, who's in the chat, but that's how we met each other. A very swanky private school many years ago, before we both went into teaching. Right. Like a $30K a year private school we worked at. So needless to say, we have had much exposure to some very wealthy people, and and the parents of these kids. And Donna commented, when you have wealth, it's easy to praise God. I think they become self-righteous. Interesting. So Donna, if
you work with wealthy people, did you find them arrogant?
Some of them, but I also found some that were completely like sweet and awesome. You know what I mean? But I will say I didn't find any that were. I didn't find many, I should say, that were like way, way, way arrogant, like ridiculous. I could count on one hand how many were just like really just brutal, terrible, like just not nice people because of their money. But there are many. But I find what Donna's comment very interesting is that it's easier to be a Christian, I guess, when you have money. And you can become, I think some poor people can become self-righteous too. At least
can be.
You know?
It's the individual, it's true.
Yeah, I mean,
the individual.
I found some very self-righteous Christians, at least in my travels on social media. And I don't know if they're wealthy or not, but I think they're just like regular working people. And I found many who are quite self-righteous. It's that thing about, finding Jesus like he was lost, right? It's that thing. It's that thing about finding God. That for some of us, that knowledge, that connection, somehow puffs us up. We miss like that whole lesson about how actually the more you learn about God, the lesser you probably should feel. And then that's how I say it. Like the closer I get to God, to me, like the more mistakes I say, the more like I feel like I have to work on. I think Paul wrote about this too.
Well, it's true. The more I know about Christ and God, the more I realize my inadequacies, if you will, my sins.
Exactly. Yeah, Paul said he's chief among the sinners, right? Apostle Paul said he's chief among the sinners. Absolutely. And he's a Bible writer. So, that whole philosophy just like burns. I'm like, what are you doing? But again, I try not to say, what are you doing? And tell that person off like there are some Christians who are wont to do, because I appreciate that everyone's in a different place and that God is working with all of us. At least that's my philosophy. And so it's not, we can say, this is how I disagree, and this is why I disagree, without getting personal and convicting that person.
Let me ask you this, Melanie. I want to protest. I'm very interested in what you have to say. I find that non-Christian people who have, maybe they've never been to a church service, or maybe that's not the answer necessarily, they've never read the Bible, they may not know about the idea of sin. Correct?
Right. Very true. Yeah.
But for me, it's absolutely obvious that we live in a world of sin. I mean, it's so obvious. I mean, we have 6 genocides in the last 100 years. I mean, come on. If the world isn't in sin, what is it?
Well, exactly. And it's everywhere and it's pervasive. And when you think about, the more you read the Bible, I'm on my 4th cover to cover reading. I'm way behind. I'm like a month and a half behind, but my schedule, but I'm doing it. But the more you read it, the more you recognize that, like, literally, as soon as you start breathing, like, as soon as you crack your eyes open in the morning, you are almost immediately sinning on some level.
But like I said, many in our present society who have not read the Bible and who haven't been exposed to this idea don't know about it.
I tend to agree with you, and because there are many Christians who don't read the Bible, the statistics are actually startling. Only something like, I don't know, 20%, 14% of Christians have actually read the Bible cover to cover.
Is that a fact?
That's a fact. I posted about it a couple of months ago. I think it might even be as low as 11%. Donna McCleary says, I know God is working with me because I've been attacked by your followers. She's talking about my Facebook followers. And I continue to come to your page. It's true. She's been, Donna battles because she's.
I ask you this. The Bible contains a revelation by God of who he is, what he's going to do in the world, and it tells us how we should live and how we can be saved. So if you don't read the Bible, you're not going to know this stuff.
That's true. And it's very hard. It's very hard because people will say things like, well, you should believe in gay marriage because God is love and God says you should love everybody. And I'm like, yeah, that is a complete and total misrepresentation. Yeah, the Bible does say that, but that is not even in the realm of what that means. Like, that's not,
Well, my response to that is, no, I do not agree about gay marriage as a moral issue. Legal issue is the way it is now, and that's but you have to look. The person has to be guided and directed to the biblical passages concerning this issue. It's in the Old Testament, in Leviticus. There are unequivocal statements about this particular activity. It's in, I think it's St. Paul, it's in Romans, Timothy, several passages. And these statements are Holy Scripture, and they're unequivocal.
Indeed. Very, very true. And I totally blew through my break, and I think I'm just going to keep going because this conversation is really way too interesting for me to stop. I want to ask you, Kim Sharp makes a very important point in the chat. He says he is love and he is just. Very true. People forget about. She said he is love because I had mentioned earlier that people will say, God is love, and that's why we should, love everybody and allow all these different kinds of love, et cetera, et cetera. And Kim Sharp said he is love and just. And people usually forget that just part.
That is a very valid point. God's love is overwhelming. It's true, and he wants to rescue. That's the best word to put it. To rescue everybody and bring them to his presence in heaven. There's no question about it. But ultimately, there's justice. The act on the cross was his solution. It was of bringing justice, of eradicating sin. Yes, he is, and also he says very definitely that there's going to be a judgment, and this is an act of justice about things.
Exactly.
God is very, his nature is extremely intertwined with being just.
You're right. You are so right. And it's the same principle. And you really hate. I know I'm not a big fan of the Old Testament, and when I'm reading it, I'm just like, oh my God, this is torture, right? But is that terrible? But I will say that when when particularly in Leviticus and Numbers, when they're talking about all the laws, and you see one of the things that has been kind of poignant to me here recently is that those laws in Leviticus were written for the priests. That was even so. Like, how much? You know what I mean? So how much sinning?
They were some kind of ritual laws or something. I don't know what they were.
Right, they were.
You're right about that.
But what happens is you understand how justice, how that justice is related to Christ, how Christ's death is related to that justice by the sacrifices that they
God felt he had to do something about sin.
Yes.
So he had to do something.
Yes.
To put the scales right. That's what he did.
Exactly. And in the Old Testament, you can see the foreshadowing. That's the word I was looking for. You can see the foreshadowing in that law of Christ's death and why it had to be that, because I think that's one of the hardest things to understand about the whole deal is like, why did it have to be that? But actually going through those scriptures and the detail and what they made the priests do and why, and for different very specific sense, will definitely bring that point home. I want to ask you, I do not want to let go the whole issue about the unions that we discussed.
Happy to talk about it.
Yeah. So
go ahead, give me your view.
Well, because in your book you said we need unions. Why we need unions, and you talked about the situations in different countries, which I don't disagree with you. Now, I am not a fan of unions for a number of reasons. Chief among them is because I'm part of a teachers union, and teachers unions, by and large, politically support Democrats, and I don't support. Yeah, they do. And at least.
Is there a particular reason why they are alive with the Democrats?
My guess is so that they can keep unions alive, and so that the teachers can keep making a certain amount of money and continue to have that negotiating power. I think it's a power play.
Well, I see your perspective here. The only thing I said about unions is that when people, let me put it this way, Melanie, when someone gets power, when a person gets power over other people, not always, but a lot of times or sometimes that power is abused. In a marriage, say, where women, didn't have any legal rights a long time ago, they were pushed around. No?
Yeah, absolutely.
They were. So I say, when people get power, that's when the problem arises. That's why having a democratic system, for all its negatives, is better than some kind of a totalitarian system. Because if you have a one-man rule, there's going to be problems.
True, but as someone, I'm not sure what state you live in, but in many states, like New Jersey, where I live, I'm sorry, where? So we're compelled to participate in the unions, and then that money is used to support legislators whose laws I patently disagree with, not the least of which is a life issue. And so, like for example, we get our little union, our election edition of the Union magazine, right? And it tells you all the candidates that they've endorsed for that election cycle. The last one I looked at, literally not one, not even an independent. Forget not one Republican, not even an independent. Now, to me, that's an absolute disgrace, and I want my money going to that, and that's why I'm so glad that it's back in the Supreme Court. But
yeah. Well, also unions, as you say, they abuse their power.
Yes.
That's the other end of the stick.
And listen, for factory workers and the things that you describe in your book, where people are working a ridiculous amount of hours and not enough pay and all that that's fine. But teachers, listen, not that we don't have difficult jobs, because we certainly do. Teaching is not fun, particularly in this day and age. But we are not, digging ditches. Okay, you know what I'm saying? We're not in sweatshops. We're not. Our fingers are not bleeding because we're working 12 hours a day doing some type of manual labor. And Donna McCleary says, but you're not obliged to vote for union candidates. That is very true, but the cost of that magazine being produced to send to people to tell them to vote for union candidates, you use my money to do. I have a problem with that.
Well, I see what you're saying, and I'm weighing it, and I'm listening to it. I'm in the process of thinking about it, what you say. I did not know the teachers union was so allied with the left. Oh
yes, very much so. And they will march. I'll give you a perfect example. Do you know that the anti-gun march, the anti-Second Amendment march, was supported by a lot of unions, by the pink hat ladies, that whole left side of the aisle. We had no business doing that in public schools. None whatsoever. And Donna says that's not the only thing your union dues are used for. Donna, I agree with you. It's not the only thing where union dues are used for, but to me, it's the Planned Parenthood argument. It's we shouldn't be funding Planned Parenthood because they do abortion, and then pro-choice people will say, well, that's not all your tax money is used for. Well, I don't want my tax money touching it. Period. Because it's my money. The government's not entitled to take my money and use it any way they want. That's why we left England. So that they would, you know what I mean? Right. So, I have every right to say, Kim Sharp said, don't get me started on that. I have every right to say, hey, government, you're taking my money and you're not using it the way I want. And I think that's the same principle with the unions. And the problem, Donna, is not so much that they use it on different things. It's the fact that I'm compelled to participate. I'm going to be frank here. I think I can negotiate my own contract based on my own performance, based on me being awesome. I don't need the union to do that. I didn't need the union to do that when I worked in a private school for 14 years. I negotiated my own contract every single year with no problem for 14 years.
It worked out good for you.
Yeah, without the union. Donna said, why can't students protest? Why isn't it a school issue? They are the targets of the gun violence. Yeah, you can protest gun violence, but you can't protest the Second Amendment. That's the problem. I don't care if they protest gun violence. That's all well and good. But what I do care about is when they are protesting my Second Amendment rights. That's the problem. And quite frankly, Donna,
let me say this about the gun issue. I have been a lawyer, and I know that guns can be obtained illegally by anybody, anytime.
True. Very true.
Anytime a criminal or a lawbreaker or somebody wants a gun illegally, they can get it.
Yep. That is very true. That is very true. I agree. But Donna said earlier that religion doesn't belong anywhere in schools. Well, I don't think politics belongs anywhere in schools either. Because if you're going to allow those politics, you should allow mine. Speaking of politics in school, they have all kinds of leftist things all over the curriculums. They have questions about same-sex couples in textbooks now. It is low-key indoctrination. Come on. Donna said just because it's the law, it doesn't make it right. Girl, whatever. But we go by the law. We don't go by feelings. We don't emote in this country. We think and we go by the law. Period. Listen.
I ask these students, I did a blog on this, I'll be honest with you, and I project a question to these people marching on the gun issue. And believe me, I am not a prejudiced person. I have no hate. As a Christian, I have goodwill to everybody that my mind encounter. But the fact of the matter is there's a tremendous number of terrorist attacks within this country. Many people have died. Outside of this country, many people have died.
Yes.
Why is it they're not protesting that?
I don't know. Why aren't they protesting inner city violence? I mean, in the same schools.
Violence is this. Why don't they say something about it?
In the same schools where you have to have metal detectors to get in the schools, why are they not protesting the black on black crime, for instance? Why are they not protesting that? They're in those very same neighborhoods. You have a much more likely chance of getting killed in your own hood than you do by some mass school shooter. But nobody's marching about that. Why not? I mean,
well, I read that those marchers, most of them aren't even kids. I read about that.
Oh no, a lot of them weren't. And the part that I have, no, I am not drinking punch liquor. Somebody in the chat, I'm drinking like some Hawaiian punch. Somebody said, am I drinking punch liquor? No. Oh goodness, why do people need assault rifles? Because they're entitled to it, because of the Second Amendment. That's why. Period. That is why. Listen, before I let you go, we're at the close of the show. Please let people know the books that you have, like some of the titles, and where they can get them.
Okay, listen, it's very nice of you to give me this opportunity, Melanie. I really enjoyed the conversation. I was informed by you, your thoughts and perspective. but I thought they were valid and interesting. And I'm in the process of thinking about what you said.
Likewise.
The book that, it's okay. The book that where these essays on poverty and union is Essays on the Christian Worldview. It's published by Hamilton Books. The second one is Essays on Faith, Culture, Politics, and Philosophy. Essays on Faith, Culture, Politics, and Philosophy. Published by University Press of America. I also have two books, law books, Select Topics 1, Select Topics 2, published by University Press of America. And most recently, I published a book on the parables, one of which I spoke about today. I think I did anyway. And that is in the process of being published, and is published by University Press of America. If anybody wants those books, just email me at a.schatkin48@gmail.com. And just as with Melanie, we had a good dialogue.
Indeed.
It was good.
Indeed.
Thanks. I was glad to hear what you had to say.
Indeed. Likewise. I sincerely enjoyed it. I appreciate it so much. I want to thank everybody in the Facebook chat, everybody in SHR Media Land and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio, all you guys that download the podcast afterwards. I love you to pieces. You rock. Remember, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a good night.
Bye, Melanie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.